Hello, Empowered Woman. Welcome to this episode of the Empowered Woman podcast. Today, I talked to Camille Campins Adams. She's a writer, editor, book coach, and serial entrepreneur. And as a writer herself, she knows the challenges that come with pursuing the craft. That's why she's passionate about helping other writers write, publish, and sell their books. We talked about how she got to starting her business, how she is a feeler on my personality quiz, and why, and so much more. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on personal growth, visibility, and profit for women entrepreneurs. If you're wanting to start believing in yourself, giving yourself permission to succeed, and let your voice be heard to make an impact in the world as an entrepreneur, this is the place for you. I am so glad that you're here. My name is Marta Spurk, and I'm your host, triplet mom, woman empowerment coach, and all things motivation extraordinaire. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi, Camille. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Marta. I'm super excited to chat with you all about books and all that good stuff.
That's right. Well, I'm so excited as well. Well, before I introduce Camille and have her introduce herself, I just want to remind everybody to make sure and take notes as you're listening to this, even if it's mental notes, and then share it with me because you're going to hear some amazing golden nuggets here. I'm sure you're going to have some ahas or just some ideas to maybe write your book, or if you're in the process of writing your book, connecting with Camille or whatever it is. I would love for you to share that with me. Take a screenshot of the episode on your podcast, write down some of the notes of whatever you resonated with, and tag me on Instagram or on Facebook. And of course, if you have the chance, leave a review on the show as well. So I connected with Camille through mutual friends on the interwebs, other entrepreneurs. We have so many mutual connections. And finally, we chatted on Zoom. We're actually part of a book club right now. So we've been connected more intimately, I guess, because we're always chatting in our little group chat for the book club. And it's been really nice. And especially since I've published my book recently as well, it's something that's been very present in my life in terms of publishing and writing and all of that. So I'm excited to have you share with us your journey, helping people get started publishing their books and also getting over writer's blocks and just putting their ideas out there into the world. So welcome, and tell us more about who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you, Marta. I'm super excited to chat with you and your audience today. So like you said, my name is Camille. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. I went to the University of Miami. I got my degree in marketing. I didn't actually know that I wanted to be a writer. I never in a million years thought I was going to be a writing coach, but life kind of takes you in so many different directions that you can't even imagine sometimes. And that's the beauty of life and the journey, and just allowing it to take you where you're meant to go, right? Mm-hmm. And so I always knew that I had a passion for books, but I didn't really know what it meant. It was just kind of there in the background, but it wasn't anything that was super clear to me. So I did go to the University of Miami and get my degree in marketing, and I studied entrepreneurship. I wanted to graduate early, so I had to switch to my minor, which was marketing, because of the class sequences and not being able to finish early. And I was actually a licensed realtor. So I did real estate while I was at the University of Miami, because my sister is still very successful realtor. And so I tried that for a while, but then the recession hit, right? I went to college in 2005. I graduated in 2008, and there were literally no jobs when I graduated college. And so I kind of bounced around. I worked at a marketing agency. I actually went back to the University of Miami and I did event planning, and I worked for the alma mater. And at one point I was like, I had married my husband, who was my middle school sweetheart. Mm-hmm. And I started traveling with him, and I came across the blog of another baseball wife, because my husband's in the baseball world. He played professionally, and she was writing about her life as a baseball wife. And I was like, this is fascinating. I want to start doing this. This is like earlier when blogging was kind of, it wasn't super new, but it wasn't, what it is today.
Yeah.
And so I just started a blog about my baseball wife journey. And I called it my serendipitous life as a baseball wife. I always love that word, serendipity.
Yeah.
And I started writing regularly, and people started really commenting and enjoying my writing. And I had reached out to the editor of MLB blogs, and I asked him if I could be featured as one of their featured blogs. And he added me to their lineup. So like if you went to MLB blogs, it's changed a lot since then. But they had like a list of blogs on their site. And I was one of them. I was a personality blog, right? They had so many different types. And for an entire year and a half, I blogged about my life as a baseball wife. And it was, a lot. It wasn't just about baseball, but there were just other things about my life that I wrote about. And I had so many baseball wives reaching out to me saying, thank you so much for your vulnerability, for sharing about this. Like, I realized what an impact writing could make in other people's lives. And I wasn't monetizing my blog. Like, I was just writing for fun. And then I got pregnant. Well, okay, before I got pregnant, my husband made it to the big leagues. He was with the New York Yankees. And I found it really hard to write. My writing dried up because I didn't know how to celebrate our wins. It was really weird. I also didn't want to attract attention to his successes, because then I thought always in the back of my mind, well, what if he fails, right? He's made it to the big leagues, but what if he doesn't stay in the big leagues?
Yeah.
So there were all these doubts. And it's so funny because I took your quiz, right? And I'm a feeler.
Oh, yay, I love it.
Yeah, I'm a feeler. And it talks about like my fears of like, I have the perfectionism. And I don't think that I all those three main things that you talked about, I don't think I'm super hardcore with all of them right now, because I've learned, right? Yeah. Like I've learned to release perfectionism, but I am a perfectionist. And that's actually why I'll get to the point of why I haven't published my book yet, because I've had my book written since 2019 and I haven't published it. Why? Maybe some of that perfectionism in me. So we can talk about that too, and just releasing that as a writer, because
I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, at a certain point, you got to just get the work out, right? Like, totally. You can always keep refining it. But yeah, so my writing dried up, and then I stopped writing, and then we got pregnant, and then I had my son, and I just found that I stopped writing for years. It was really horrible. Every time I tried to start, I would stop, and I couldn't manage because of the kids, and it was just so hard to find time.
Yeah.
And then my husband stopped playing and decided he was going to go back and finish his degree, because he got drafted out of the University of Virginia, never finished his degree. So he's like, I'm going to go back and finish my degree. And I said, well, hey, I want to go get my master's. I'm going to go get a writing degree. So I got my master's in creative writing. And I did that, to be honest, as an excuse to write. I felt like if I enrolled in a master's program, I would give myself permission to write, permission to do this, have this creative outlet.
Yeah.
And I knew I always wanted to publish a book, but that perfectionism, right? That perfectionist in me was like, well, you don't know all the grammar rules, and you don't know all this and that. Like, you need to learn all the things to be able to write this book.
Yeah.
And so going to grad school was a way for me to refine my writing skills, and for me to give myself an excuse, because I was investing $30,000 a year, right? Like, okay, you don't need to spend 90 grand on an education to give yourself an excuse to do something you like, right? And so that was my journey. And then when I finished grad school, I started freelancing. Well, I went back to work a little bit, realized mom guilt, like, no, this isn't for me. I also really want to be my own boss. So I started freelancing as a writer, and that kind of took off. And then I had so many people reaching out to me, asking me for help with their books. And randomly, like, I don't know if it was just because I had gone to grad school for it, that they just assumed I knew. So I started really learning more about what it entailed to actually help people as a book coach. And that's just how it all took off. And then in October of last year, I completely dropped all of my writing clients. I have literally one that I still write for, because she does nonprofits, and they're religious nonprofits, and I feel really strongly about the causes. So I still write for her, but everything else that's writing done for you, I've completely eliminated. And now I am 100% focused on helping authors write, publish, edit, and launch their books.
Oh my goodness. I love that. And I love hearing the journey, because we connected before one-on-one on Zoom, but obviously for an initial introduction, we didn't talk about all of the nitty-gritty of the story. And I always say this on the show, I feel like I repeat myself a lot, that it's so interesting to see how everybody's journey is so different, and how it's never linear. It's not like I was born, next day I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. You just learn as you go. And oftentimes it feels like, oh, I just wasted my time and this is not going to be used in the future, but it most definitely usually is. It's never wasted, right? The experiences. So I love, the backstory of what your degree was in and then what you got into. And then there's the pauses, right? The hiatuses of motherhood and marriage and supporting your spouse in his dreams and what he's working on, but then making something out of it for yourself. Is the blog still up? Is it something that's still out there?
No. So what happened was that MLB blogs changed from WordPress to Medium. I don't know if you remember when kind of Medium took over the internet as like a blogging, medium.com. And when they shifted everything over, things got kind of weird and I wasn't really active. So I took the blog back, like control of it. And I have a website where you can actually go to my life it's my serendipitous life as a baseball wife. Or actually, I'm sorry, I ended up dropping serendipity. So it's my life as a baseball wife. Okay. And if you go to that site, you can actually kind of scroll and see like archives of the things that I've written. But it's kind of like under construction. I mean, you can still go in and read it, but I'm not actively doing anything with it.
No, that's fun. Because I was wondering if anybody is into that, or maybe there is a baseball wife listening to us and she could take some comfort in your words. But that's awesome. So something else, I love that you brought up the quiz. So thank you. Now this gives me an idea. I need to bring in other people on the show that have taken the quiz and resonated with it so that it'll encourage people to go on and take the quiz. Because that was something else that I wanted us to touch on, is the idea that you never are finished. So you can never actually publish a book, because I 100% resonate with that. And whenever people come to me and ask me, how long did it take you? Or how long does it take? I usually say it will take as long as you want it to take, because it's actually not that hard, so to speak, with like the tacticals or, right? Get out there, publish, have an editor go through. It's really not that hard. I feel like the mindset piece is the biggest hurdle. And I thought that putting the book out would be the biggest hurdle. But to be honest, and I've been calling it my postpartum book, you're still kind of living off of that, because it's really recent for me. It's been 3 months. So I'm still kind of unpacking, especially because I share a lot of my story. It is nonfiction, right? So there's a lot that I'm still kind of processing. And I feel like publishing the book was a step into processing it. It's not that I've gotten all processed, so I wrote the book and then it's out. Like, it's an ongoing journey. So I love that you talked about perfectionism, because even though based on my little framework of the 3 personality types, the feelers tend to be the ones that have these perfectionist tendencies, or envisioning the worst and wanting to be prepared and not wanting to take risks. We all struggle with that. And that's a quick parenthesis I wanted to make here, is that oftentimes we look at these like assessments and I hear this a lot from people. It's like, I'm all of them. I have all of the characteristics. And it's like, for sure, we have the spectrum of emotions and things that we feel, and we are able to feel all of them at a certain point in time, but we have tendencies. There are things that are more predominant. And that's what I talk about in terms of the quiz, and understanding that there's nothing wrong with you. It's just the way that you operate. So let's examine and let's leverage it for the best, is the step towards getting things done, right? But definitely, I feel like in terms of book writing, anything business-wise, right? But especially in terms of the book, since this is the topic at hand, there is this pressure that it has to be the Bible, right? It has to be like a canon. But when I was in the process, and I'd love to hear from your perspective in terms of your book and also the people that you help, is that once we were pretty much finalizing and cutting stuff out that didn't belong, once it was determined what the topic was going to be like, is when I understood, oh, this is how people write more than one book. You can't fit everything in one. You should not, because then it doesn't make it a book. It makes something scattered and weird. So that's tip for everyone out there that is delaying on their dream of publishing a book.
Yes. No. And honestly, you don't want to write a tome. We call those tomes like those huge books that are like 100,000 plus words, because it's really a hard book to write. It's a hard book to read. People like snappy books, especially if you're writing for business purposes. Yeah. They don't want to be sitting through a book for, months and months and months that they can never finish. So it's beautiful that you said that. And I always give Gabby Bernstein as an example. because she's written like 8 books now.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think she's been able to write 8 books? Well, you focus in on one pain point and you write to that pain point.
Mm-hmm.
And you as a business owner, if you're writing specifically more of a business geared conventional nonfiction book, you're serving multiple pain points, right? Like my pain points when we were talking about, okay, so what are the things that hinder writers? One of them is finding the time to write. So, setting proper habits, mindset, every single phase that I go through with my writers and the authors in my programs can be a book in and of itself, right? Each of those modules can be a book, because I find that the number one hurdle, and you hit it on the head, Marta, is mindset. Mm-hmm. It is this ability to, or lack thereof, to completely be able to get out of your head and allow the writing to flow through you. And you and I are both Christians. So like we believe in the Holy Spirit. We believe in God, really guiding us and being able to quiet your own ego and mind down enough to allow that to flow through you. And we get in our heads, we start overcomplicating things. We start telling ourselves all the reasons we shouldn't write the book and all the reasons why people might criticize us for the book. And honestly, this is a revelation. So we're going through this book club together on, this amazing book called Energetic Selling and Marketing. And one of the revelations that came up for me is that I see so many book coaches out there that are so focused on this masculine energy of write your book for impact so that you can make 6 figures,
right? And
how to get this high impact book written and how to do it in 27 days, how to do it in 30 days, how to do it fast. And that is just not me. Oops, I think I just spilled water. Sorry. I knocked over my water bottle. That is just so not me. I feel like I have more of a feminine, I do have the masculine energy. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I absolutely do goal setting workshops every month. There is a masculine energy when you're talking about goals, right? Because you have to set goals if you're ever going to get this book out there into the world.
Totally.
But leaning in to that feminine energy of self-discovery through writing. Yeah. Writing for catharsis, writing to understand yourself, to understand something better. Because a lot of writers come to a topic because they want to learn more about it, right? And in the process of teaching others, they are learning themselves, right? And so it's self-mastery almost, like you're going through this process of self-discovery to self-mastery so you can then impart that wisdom on the next person. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that this idea of getting a book written in 30 days is doing justice to writers. I think that it's making the process of writing too mechanical, right? And not allowing flow, and source, right? God to speak to us and to allow it to guide you through those energetic ups and downs of the writing process, because you're going to have moments where you need to take a breather and you have to say, okay, you know what? This is a week where I have it on my calendar to write. I've set the time to write, but maybe you just come to your writing space and you just sit there quietly and nothing actually comes out. And that's okay. That's that's part of the process too, right? So I love that you said that about being able to go through it as like self-discovery and noticing that you're still evolving and it isn't going to be like the word of God, right? Like where we talk about the things that doesn't evolve, like it can very much evolve. And I think that's also been why I haven't published my memoir, because I wrote my memoir in college and my story changed. Mm-hmm. And the angle that I took wasn't what I feel needs to be published today. And so I'm actually going to go back to that project and I'm going to completely rewrite it. And I have that as one of my goals for this year and just to get started. But it's very much you put it together. You like in what I was sharing, you said exactly what my book is about. It's like knowing that your path isn't necessarily linear, but being able to step up and outside of all of the things that you are wanting to do, right? Like be this perfect mom, be this perfect wife, and like the different seasons and enjoying that, but knowing that we have our own individual purpose and that it's valid. And that's really what I've been called to write, but it's finding the time finding the time with the 3 kids, you know what that's like. Yeah. So practicing what I preach and really stepping into that and becoming the writer and the author that I expect my clients to be, because If I'm going to walk them hand in hand through this process, I have to hold myself to those same standards and getting out of my own way.
Right. And that's a great way to stay accountable too, is when you're telling people to do something, then you're going to have to really look at yourself, be honest with yourself and say, but wait a minute, am I actually doing what I'm telling them to do? So that's great. Well, I know you have some amazing resources to share with us, and I'll put them all in the show notes, because you do have a free resource that helps people really accept the fact that they can be writers, even if they don't consider themselves writers. Because I think that's another point too. Many people see other people publishing books and they're like, I would like to, but I am not a writer, or I've never been a good writer. Maybe they compare to experiences in the past. In school, I sucked, I had bad grades, or whatever it is that some kind of traumatic experience has created. And I love that you're helping people see that it doesn't have to stay that way, or they could reframe those thoughts as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So I have a free resource called You're a Writer, Start Writing. And what it does is it really helps you. It works on your mindset. We talk about affirmations and setting intentions and really owning that you're a writer, because we are all writers, whether we want to admit it to ourselves or not. We are all communicating through the written word, via text, via social media post. Whatever you're doing every day, you're writing something, right? And so we are all writers, and writing looks different for everybody. And there's one thing that I really took away from, I took a lot away from grad school, but one of the things I really took away from grad school was that there is no one size fits all formula for writing. And what I always thought writing is not what writing is, right? High school English is not what you're going to be following when you're writing a book or when you're writing on social media. And there is a horrible trauma that we've done to our children where we do tell them that they're bad writers because they can't follow a 5-paragraph essay. And no, not necessarily. All of our words matter.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we own that we are writers. And so Your Writer, Start Writing just really helps you with the affirmations and then goal setting and what are you going to do to actually step into and embody your next level self as a writer. And then I take them through really trying to identify rhythms for when writing would be best for them in their day-to-day, and setting that writing calendar and schedule so that you're consistent with your writing.
That's amazing. I'll be sure and put that in the show notes. And you also have the program that you were talking about that you're currently working on with writers to help them with the intent of publishing a book, right? So can you tell us more about that?
So I launched the Author Legacy Project this year because I just felt really, really passionate about helping writers get their books out into the world, out of their heads and onto the page. But also, I had been working one-on-one with clients, and another great teaching lesson, right? Something I really learned in grad school was the importance of community, because the act of writing is lonely, but being a writer doesn't have to be, right? If you surround yourself with other writers, then you build this sense of community. And so what I did is I launched the Author Legacy Project as a way to be able to impact more writers and also bring in that sense of community. So what we do in the Author Legacy Project that I wasn't doing with my one-on-one clients was I host multiple accountability calls throughout the week where I have it on the calendar and you actually come and you show up and we're writing as a group. Sometimes, I get 5 people on there. Sometimes nobody can make it, and that's totally fine. It just depends. But that time is set on the calendar and that I'm there holding you accountable. And then we also do group goal setting workshops, and we do group coaching calls and group Q&As. And then I'll have guest teachers come in periodically to do some lessons. So I just felt like I took my one-on-one packages and I added this group aspect to it. And it's just been really amazing. And I'm getting great feedback.
Yeah, no, I love the group stuff for sure. And I feel like we learn a lot by having one-on-one clients because it's that one specific person going through something, but then the group just brings a different element of it because of the accountability and you getting to see other people doing something similar to you. It's almost like everyone gets to contribute. You don't have to be the end all because other people have opinions too. So it kind of helps with that. And it takes the pressure off of everyone because they don't, that's what I feel, at least with one-on-ones too. They're great in their own capacity, but there's different things you can get out of a group, especially the accountability. Let's jump on this call, everyone get to work, like a co-writing session, right?
That's what it is. It's basically like a co-writing sprint session. And then because book coaching is so hands-on and high touch, each of the levels do have a one-on-one component with me where I meet with the writers one-on-one, either once a month or 3 times a month, depending on the level. Because I have found there are other programs out there that don't have that one-on-one piece, but that's really where my zone of genius is like coming on a call with you and working with you one-on-one to work through whatever challenges are your roadblocks you're coming up against, but also editing your work. I do these editing sessions where I'll edit chapters live, and writers get so much out of it. And it really lights me up to do that. So
I love that. Well, I want to put the information also in the show notes for that in case anyone wants to check it out. And one thing before we wrap up, I've completely forgot to say it before we started, and everyone's usually like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to feel about this, is I like to end the episodes with a rapid fire, fire questions, but it's really just whatever comes to mind. It could be just a word, or it could be, if you want to elaborate on it, but it's the 5 steps in my framework and the framework that I have in my book as well. So let me start with the first one. So there are 5, and just whatever comes to mind. Are you ready?
Oh my gosh, I'm nervous. Okay, let's do it.
I love this part. All right, first one is notice yourself. What comes to mind? Notice yourself.
Ooh, that's deep, girl. Peace. Right now, I feel like I'm at peace because I've been focusing more on my spirituality than I had been. And I just like go with the flow, no pressure, just at peace with where I am right now.
I so resonate 100%. Second one is listen to yourself.
Gratitude. I think lately I've been focusing so much more on just being grateful. Mm-hmm. And when I look around, and I'm like, I work out of my room, like I don't have like a designated office space or anything, but I just am so grateful for everything that I have.
Mm-hmm. Next is forgive yourself.
I say, 2 things are coming to me right now. Mm-hmm. My struggles with raising my children and having patience, because we get so frustrated with them not listening. And just, I feel like yesterday at church, I was like asking for forgiveness for losing my temper with them and getting angry. But also forgiving myself for not getting to where I am sooner, because I always felt like I had to be at a certain place by the time I was in my 30s. And I've accomplished a lot, I feel like, with my marriage and my family life. But when it comes to my career, I always say that I'm a late bloomer. I'm going to be 35 this year. I'm really not a late bloomer. I have people in their 50s laughing at me, but just accepting that all our journeys are different,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I so resonate. I'm feeling like we're twins in these responses, because I'm like, yep, as well. Kids. And also late bloomer, or feeling like I'm behind all the time. So totally resonate. Next one, empower yourself.
This year is going to be an amazing year, no matter what the outcome financially.
I love it. And last but not least, transform yourself.
This is tough. I don't know exactly what angle to take on this. When you say transform yourself, anything?
That's the point.
So I really feel like I'm stepping into a next level, and that next level may not necessarily be like, oh, I'm going to make 6-7 figures this year. It could be so much as like, I'm really taking better care of myself. I'm focusing a little bit more on self-care. I'm like, what is it going to speak? Self-care than I have been. And just like owning, becoming that next best version of myself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that so much. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Let us know how to find you, and I'll put everything in the show notes as well. But what's the best place to come hang out with you?
So I have been having fun on Instagram with my reels. It took me a while to jump on the reels board, but I'm doing the reels now, and it's at Campins Adams. And then just my website is CamilleCampinsadams.com. You can learn about my program, and that's it, pretty much. At Facebook, of course. a little bit of everywhere.
Yay, I love it. Well, thank you again. This was so fun. It's so nice to learn some more details. And I know I'm going to get to know even more as we continue on in our little book club. It's been really enlightening. So thank you so much, Camille.
Thanks, Marta.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Camille. Don't forget to connect with her. All the links are in the show notes. And go on ahead and take my personality quiz. I want to know if you're a feeler, thinker, or doer. Go to marchesperk.com and it's on the homepage. You can click and take the quiz. And yeah, I would love to hear your feedback. I would love for you to join my Facebook group. Let me know what your results are and your takeaways for this episode as well. Until next time, bye.